Welcome, and thank you for joining this demonstration entitled Backtracking CTE Student Pathways by Dr. Marcia Martis and me, Faye Jones. This project is a collaborative project led by faculty at Florida State University and Tallahassee Community College. So today we will just demonstrate the backtracking technique. We will share an overview and discuss our mixed method approach on how to collect student pathway data using the backtracking technique. We then describe how our data analysis process using pilot interviews we recently conducted. We'll illustrate individual pathway identification, pathway aggregation using the backtracking technique, and of course we'll provide thoughts and time for questions and answers at the end. The backtracking technique, it consists of 3 layers or phases. Layer 1 is our institutional research college data. We begin by pulling cohort data and contact information, transfer information, alumni demographics, academic history, and high school history information as well, in addition to other filtering variables. The contact information from layer 1 is then used in layer 2 to survey alumni about their employment history, such as job title, company, salary, job location, and other related information. Layers 1 and 2 are primarily quantitative. And then in layer 3, we take information from layers 1 and 2 and use it to inform alumni interviews. Layer 3, of course, is qualitative in nature, and we use that to extract rich text about students' experiences. And then finally, the final section there, you'll see data analysis, which involves identification of individual pathways and then integration of the pathways along with model creation. And then we'll now discuss each of these layers in a little bit more detail. So let's review layer 1 and the extrapolation of IR and college data. Okay, so institutional research really gives the backtracking technique an edge in data collection and extraction of IR data prior to surveying or interviewing former students. And this is key because it gives us insight into students' experiences prior to that data collection. So for example, IR can inform us about coursework, such as failed grades or failed courses, low grades, drops in GPA, and withdrawal from courses. We can gain insight into financial difficulties, periods of enrollment, changes in major, completion rates, and much more, right? So if we look at the snippet provided of one of the students' IR data from the pilot, in red, you'll see that after the first semester, the student did not re-enroll for an entire year, and you'll see that right here in the red, okay? And then, of course, you'll also see that the student did not re-enroll for an entire year, and that the student also experienced a change in major during this period, as shown in the blue circles. So we also see in the yellow square that the student withdrew from all courses in that first semester. So you can see how IR informs the study and allows us to focus on these data points when interviewing former students. Let's look at another example. So here is another student's IR snippet, and we'll see a change in major in conjunction with academic probation, right, as signified by that GPA that's less than 2.0, and also a continued decline in GPA, and then an increase in GPA after the change in major. So we see here proof that the degree was awarded, and of course, that's something that we always want to see as educators. So next, let's discuss layer 2, where we obtain alumni transfer data and collect employment data. So how do we locate alumni? Well, if you remember the IR data we extracted in layer 1, we now use that to inform, to collect information about our graduates, right? Their contact information. We also have ways to capture LinkedIn data to reach them, and by phone if absolutely necessary, right? So in the alumni survey, we focus on graduates' employment data. Is the graduate employed full-time? Are they employed in their field? What is their job and job title? How much do they make? And are they currently pursuing an advanced degree? And if so, in what, right? So we go a little bit into more detail about their employment and history and what happened to them after they graduated. So of course, you can use alumni survey results to capture outcomes data, perhaps identify where students are employed, how far they travel from where they graduated, and even create pie charts, for salary data. The map presented here charts the 3 students in the pilot. The 2 in green, okay, so you'll see these on the map. The 2 in green are employed. The 1 in red is unemployed, okay? And of course, the flag that you see here is the institution they all graduated from. So layer 2 has additional benefits for tracking student employment outcomes. And that is also very important these days with accountability, et cetera, of higher ed institutions and what we're doing, what our graduates are doing. Layer 3 involves the collection of pathway explanatory data. So let's look at that. So the backtracking technique truly is about understanding students' lived experiences. What hindrances did they have on their way to accomplishing their graduation goal? And how did they overcome these setbacks? For example, did personal issues arise, financial situations, difficulty with courses? Also, we want to know about the facilitators along the way too. Do they have mentors, participate in clubs or other experiential learning activities? And of course, guided by institutional research, we have a better way to identify these influencers, hindrances, and critical junctures. So critical junctures specifically are these complete stopping points when students felt like they would not have been able to continue had they not met an immediate or dire need. So those are what we call critical junctures. So then, of course, sample interview questions might include questions of course taking. So now informed by IR, we now may have a question like, I see that you retook course X in summer X, year X, right? What approach did you take to pass it the second time? Did you feel you were prepared to take this course? Why or why not? Other questions might involve a major or degree selection or change in major, right? What led you to pursue this major? What led you to change from major X to major Y? And of course, through IR, we know exactly what that major change was. What about mentoring and advising? Were there any mentors, such as faculty or advisors, that had an impact on your college success? You'd be able to then ask if they could provide examples. How would you describe your academic advising while getting your A or S degree after you transferred? We're able now to talk a little bit more about experiential learning, right? Did you participate in internships or other employment opportunities related to your field? What extracurricular activities were you a part of? And then, of course, race and ethnicity, such as what resources were beneficial to you as a woman or a person of color while you were pursuing your degree, and was diversity ever an issue in your courses or on campus? And if so, how did you navigate through these issues, et cetera? So the interview questions really do get to a little bit more, or gets deeper into what we're looking at with students into more detail. So we also have already conducted an initial pilot, and that's what we're presenting today, where we targeted 5 African-American students, okay? And 3 agreed to the interview. So 2 African-American men, we have pseudonyms for them, Robert and Aaron. 1 African-American woman, her name is Christy, along with all of them, of course, they had IT or computing bachelor's degrees, and 2 of the 3 were from a community college and received an AA. So finally, we analyze data, right? So let's look a little bit at this. First, we structure the individual student pathways into semesters and embed facilitators, hindrances, and critical junctures based on what students have shared, right? Here, we're able to summarize the individual pathways of Christy, Robert, and Aaron, who graduated with an IT or computing degree. You'll see these critical junctures identified in blue, hindrances in red, and facilitators in green. And if you'll notice at the top, you'll get to see some of these issues. So if we're looking at facilitators, here, someone got a Rotary Housing Scholarship that helped them, right, and with their finances, maybe a competitive internship, or the Black Network Code 2040 group that they were able to become members of, or perhaps they were a teaching assistant, right, etc. Some hindrances, so family difficulties, withdrawal from a course due to medical reasons, still, battling with medical issues, etc. Or even here at the bottom where the students said they were not prepared for programming courses early in their education, and even a few hindrances, right? We have one student who mentioned that they were HIV positive. Of course, that is a complete critical juncture, right? Now we have a complete issue that deserves a little bit more attention. Is that a stopping point until you can figure out what you're going to do with that situation? And another one who said that the same student said that they had academic probation. Another student who discussed that they didn't know they had diabetes and they almost went into a diabetic coma, had an A1C of 17. We know that usually 6 or below is what's normal. So again, these are all issues of things that we found out through our exploration and our deeper dive. Now a combination of of the IR data, the employment data, and also our interviews with the students. So next, what we're going to do is Dr. Marcia Martis is going to illustrate how we start to aggregate and look at these pathways. So take a look at this video.
So once we've collected our qualitative and quantitative data, we can begin charting individual pathways and looking for commonalities. So let's give ourselves some time span here. So the interviews covered 7 semesters for 2 participants and 6 semesters for 1 participant. 2 were transfers, that's why, and 1 was a traditional undergraduate 4-year student. So what we're going to do is give our transfers an extra semester right off the top here. And then we have approximately 2 years of 3 semesters each. And this is when they enter. This is where they exit. And we know we've got year 1 here, we've got year 2 here. And so for our transfer students, we have semesters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And for our undergraduate student, traditional student, we have semesters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so these are our AAA students, and this is our traditional undergraduate student. So one of the other things that we're charting is also the high points and the low points in their academic career. So let's give ourselves kind of a cutoff line right about there. Okay, let's take, for example, our first participant, Christy, and she's the only woman among our participants. And so from Christy's IR data, we can tell that she was admitted after transferring from community college, but withdrew all of her courses in her first semester. So we can just kind of give her a kind of a stop there. But there was almost a 1-year delay between Christy's first semester and her second semester. So we're going to just give some dotted lines here. And here's Christy's second semester. So in her second semester, we saw that she declared an ICT major and passed her math courses with some fairly low grades. But in her third semester, her grades improved slightly. But in her fourth semester, she withdrew from a course, so that's another dotted line. However, in semesters 5 and 6, her grades continued to improve, and she graduated in semester 7 with a 3.3 GPA. 3.3. Okay, from our interview then with Christy, we learned that her initial delay was due to a serious medical condition, and this was a real critical juncture in her education. Her medical condition also affected her work in semesters 3 and 4, causing the other withdrawal and low grades. So we learned that Christy decided to change her major to ICT in the second semester because she felt like she could pass those courses and they seemed more interesting to her. And to that extent, the curriculum was really a facilitator. And so Christy credits her improved GPA in semesters 5 and 6 to joining an IT club, working with a faculty mentor, and getting an IT job. Christy credits her post-graduation employment to these facilitators, and unfortunately, she was recently laid off due to COVID-19, but we'll give her an E for employee. Now let's turn to Robert. And from Robert's IR data, he's our other transfer student, we can see that he transferred from a community college but received low grades after his first bachelor semester. So we'll start him in kind of around here. In semester 2, his grades improved, but they were low still. But in semester 3, Robert changed his major to ICT. And in semester 4, Robert did well in some courses and not well in others. But his grades did improve in semesters 5, 6, and 7. And so Robert graduated with a 2.8 GPA. So in our interview with Robert, we learned that he had no programming background and quickly fell behind in his IT courses. And so that's something that we really have to note as a hindrance. And although he tried to keep up, by semester 3, he decided to change his major to ICT because he was also dealing with another major stressor in his life, which was an HIV diagnosis. So he's dealing with that as well. And the reason why his grades were so uneven in semester 4 is because he was dealing with some family stress related to that diagnosis. But things began to even out by semester 5, and he got a part-time IT job and faculty mentoring for his personal and professional issues. He credits his improving grades and completion to this support. And Robert initially had 2 jobs after graduation, working 2 jobs at the same time, but those jobs eventually landed him a single IT job with a decent salary. So now let's turn to our final participant, Aaron. And so from the interview data, we learned that Aaron was a traditional student who declared IT major in the first semester of his junior year, and his GPA was 3.4. So we can start Aaron right about here. However, Aaron changed his major to computer science in the second semester of his junior year. And his grades remained strong in semesters 3 through 6, and he graduated with a 3.8 GPA. And so from our interview, we learned that Aaron changed majors because he wanted more challenging courses, and he felt that computer science majors had better earning potential. He also received a Rotary Housing Scholarship that gave him the time and resources to focus on doing well in his challenging computer science coursework. And so his strong academic performance yielded him a competitive internship in semester 3, which led him to join the Black Network Code 2040 group. And so his continually strong grades and campus connections yield him a competitive computer science teaching assistant role in semesters 5 and 6. Aaron reported that the TA-ship, the Code 2040 group, and his internship gave him a big network and lots of opportunities to excel in job interviews. And so as a result, he is now a software engineer in Silicon Valley, making over $100,000 a year. So when we map all these pathways against each other, a few things stand out. ICT majors can be a good choice for students who are interested in applied aspects of technology, like social media. And this may be true for other CTE students who enter in one specialization, but really may be better off in another. And so that early intervention can make a real difference. Even with daunting challenges like medical conditions and family stress, students can maintain and improve their academic performance if they are guided to the right academic programs in time. Faculty mentors and outside classroom experiences can be absolutely pivotal in keeping students focused on degree completion and in-field employment. And networking opportunities tend to yield more networking opportunities. And these connections can be leveraged throughout a student's experience. So this is an example of how pathways look in an offline way. Online, these will all be mapped and the commonalities will begin to emerge, and we will be able to delve deeper and figure out where effective interventions can be placed and what those interventions.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Marcia, for that illustration. So in our final thoughts here, backtracking is an effective strategy to understand student outcomes, right? It allows us to capture longitudinal student data, right? But we're just backtracking it. We're capturing that information through institutional research archives. And of course, we use that IR data to inform inquiry. It can be used to improve organizational policies, processes, and decision-making, right? So in student affairs, career and academic advising, underserved and underrepresented populations, understanding the resources that help guide them, those hindrances, and how they overcame them. And academic affairs also improving curricula, the recruitment of students into majors, etc. And of course, experiential learning and informal learning like internships, jobs and majors, networking, and of course, employer engagement. So through the backtracking system, there are many types of benefits that we can have or experience. So we just began this NSF ATE project in August of 2020, and we are excited to continue sharing our newest backtracking data in the years to come. But I really would like to take a moment to acknowledge our awesome project team. Dr. Martis is our PI, and Calandra Stringer also. Dr. M is from Florida State University, and of course, Dr. Stringer from Tallahassee Community College. First, you know me, and then Brandery, our IT specialist and senior faculty at Florida State University. So at this moment, I'd like to thank you for attending. And of course, I'd love to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.